put it on or just hold it? Just put it on. Don't usually wear a necklace. The FBI, I thought for sure 69 people were taking the test that day, and they said, don't quit your jobs. Maybe one person from this will end up getting in. I was the lucky guy. I was a teacher, and it was all these guys in suits that look like me now, serious suits, and I didn't feel like I was one of those. But you go to the FBI Academy when you get hired as an agent, Quantico, Virginia. You spend 6 months. I didn't think it was too hard. I think the academics were more on like college class academics, not too bad. I was really fit. I was a high school wrestling coach, so the fitness part was pretty easy, and shooting came to me. So the academy wasn't bad for me, and then they've changed it 10 times, but they had a transfer policy that in 1985, they did not allow you to even say where you wanted to go. They didn't give you that much respect. You were going to go for the needs of the Bureau, wherever they sent you, and you were going to like it. And they were still living, even though Hoover died in 72, they were still living in 85. Many of the Hoover people believed, to treat people, hold them down to a certain level. So I joked with everybody, teased everybody, because it's my nature, is sort of like a happy friendly, that I was going to Hawaii because they have a field office in Hawaii, and I don't know about you schmucks, gone to Arkansas and all those places, but I'm going to Hawaii. And I went to Honolulu. And I think that happened, I found out later in my career that the people that get assigned to Hawaii or Alaska, they usually ask the counselors, because it can be a hardship to send families. The schools are horrible in Hawaii, and they don't want to send somebody there that's got 4 kids, can't afford to have an apartment, it's very expensive. And I think they probably asked the counselors, and they said, oh boy. And 4 years in Honolulu, 16 years in Los Angeles field office. They transfer you after your first 4 years, and 5 years at FBI headquarters in different, Pennsylvania Avenue in different executive spots, and 2 years in Cleveland.
Okay, so in Honolulu for 4 years, what kind of things were you working on that were either the same or different than all that time you spent in Los Angeles?
Well, they had a plan, and again, they've changed it over the years, but originally when I came in, they would send a new agent to a medium-sized office so that you're not overwhelmed, that you don't come out new and work on Bernie Madoff or something that's just the most massive case alive. So you go to a medium-sized office, and they rotate you into the different assignments so that you actually get rounded, and then you have to go to the big city. When I came through after 4 years, you went to New York, Miami, LA, Chicago. It was a mandatory rotation, which happened to me. So I spent a year working white-collar crime, a year working counterintelligence, a year working violent crime, organized crime, and for a year I was the crime on government reservation coordinator. So I handled all the cases on Hickam Air Force Base, Pearl Harbor. There are 7 major bases there, and it's the things that happen on the base with civilians. Civilians aren't able to be handled with the, I should know, being in the service, but the, what is it, the military code? UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Okay, when you decided to go to the FBI, what was your goal? I mean, to become a police chief back home someday, or you retire from the FBI, or you could have, served 3 years and run for mayor of Cleveland? What did you do?
When I got in the FBI, I was I'll say this because to me it's important, but I was a C- at best, Kenmore High School, hair down the middle of my back, joined the Navy to get a job. I mean, that's like a lot of people, broken home, nobody checking my grades, and all I wanted to do was go to a Led Zeppelin concert or a concert at the Rubber Bowl or something like that. And then the military gets their hands on you, and some people realize, oh wow, they try to teach professionalism and develop human potential, and nobody had ever done that, not at Kenmore High School, not at home. And this is going to get back to the point, but so I was just a below average, way below average student and achiever until the Navy starts talking to all their people about professionalism, tradition, and doing things right and rewarding and all those things. So going to your question, when I got hired by the FBI, this Kenmore guy, I thought I hit the biggest home run ever. And I wasn't going to mess it up. No how, no way. I worked so hard and kept my head down. Last thing I wanted to do was come back to Akron, Ohio, and Kenmore and have failed at what all my friends thought also was a big home run, like, wow. Because my friends are all working in the factories around here, truck drivers. Very few of them went to college. And so I wasn't going to let myself or anybody else down. So my intention was to stay employed there for the whole career, retire from the FBI, and really live the dream of having a really neat job.
So how did the present job come about? Was there an opening you applied, and Mayor Pasquale recruit you? How did that happen?
I've had, and this may sound like patting myself on the back, but I've had a few opportunities in life that I believed are earned, because you do something and somebody recognizes it and you earn it. It's like my coaching. I had coached at Akron South High School and Coventry High School, had noticed some of the things I was doing there, and they were state champs and took me on board to state champ team. So on this job, I spent 2 years undercover in Akron, Ohio, buying drugs and guns. I had a beard in my 50s. I had a beard about that long, and it was pretty easy for a Kenmore guy and myself. I'd done a lot of undercover in the FBI. My last assignment, I was in charge of covert ops for the whole FBI worldwide, which is a great job, huge job. But I had done undercover in probably 7 different countries, run covert ops, been covert. So I'm buying drugs and guns here in Akron from young black gang members. It was funny because they didn't think a 50-year-old could do it, but it was easy. They're eating out of my hands over in Hillwood Homes, Wilbeth Homes. I lived in Wilbeth Homes before I started kindergarten. And the lieutenant, who's now the assistant chief, Charles Brown, was the lieutenant of the gang unit. So it was a joint operation with the FBI and the Akron Police Department. The lieutenant, who's not quite my age, Garfield graduate, we became good friends. He was watching his gang guys work. I was the undercover, and he called me in Washington. I mean, I planned on trying to teach at the University of Akron, being retired, trying to teach in the police academy or maybe something like that. He called me. The bureau kicks you out at 57 years old. It's just cut and dry, you're gone. So I was coming up on mandatory retirement, timing's everything, not looking for a police chief job. Because we got along, because we worked together on a case, he said, hey chief, Mayor Pasquale is going to go outside for a police chief. He's not even going to consider anybody in the Akron Police Department. He's lost faith in the upper ranks, and he's going to do a national search, and nobody from the Akron Police Department has a chance. You should put in. So I got a call, and I laughed, similar to when somebody said, oh, you should be an FBI agent. But I also, after I laugh, think things over and think, wow, would that be like the coolest thing ever, is to go back to my hometown where my high school friends are, family and things like that, and be the police chief? Wow. And of course, it's not really possible, even though he's saying it, because the national search is going to get candidates from all across the country, and I'm not even a policeman. So there had to be an opening. The mayor had to want somebody from the outside. And in that whole pool of candidates, there was only one guy who wasn't a police officer, and that was me. And Don Pasquale had gotten to the point where unionized thinking and mentalities and growing up in those systems, he wanted something different. And so I think that was the one thing that was on my side is, if you want something different, this may be different. Everybody else was an assistant chief, a chief, and they had grown up in that union environment, and he pretty much had it. So it was a timing luck. I wasn't even looking to, at 57, to begin a local police job.
So what was the biggest challenge of not coming, through the Akron Police Department or any police department and becoming chief? What was the biggest challenge for you?
The challenge was monstrous, actually. And if somebody backed me up and told me what you would have to go through, you'd almost have to, now of course I'm glad I did it, but you'd have to almost reconsider. There are cultures out there that get deeply rooted, and union cultures are very, very serious cultures. Things are based upon seniority. If you don't do these check marks, and nobody skips a rank, so you've got to do this long, and for the sergeant, they have to do a test, and the guy that ranks number 1, and they go through this whole system. And to go get an FBI guy, number 1, the mayor told 10 captains he let the deputy chief ranks go away. He told them, I'm not promoting any of you to chief, and sort of pushed them out of the way, so there were no deputy chiefs, and there's supposed to be 4. Then he told the captains, you're not getting promoted, I'm not considering you. And that really hurts feelings, but sometimes leaders do things they want to do, and they do them for, I think Don did it for the right reasons, because he felt like they needed a change, and to do that. So when you come in and you have not been a local police officer, you haven't steered a patrol car, you haven't worn the 70 pounds of gear and gone to domestic fights and things like that, I can vividly remember coming into a room after he hired me, and there are 10 captains who had been really, what they felt, insulted horribly. Good people, worked 25 years, and to sit at the head of that table, and I didn't say it this way, but, hi guys, I'm your boss, I'm from the FBI, I'm here to fix you. It was, I had folks undermining me, I had folks trying to make me fail. There were meetings, secret meetings after my meetings, where captains would sneak off to a room and literally try to find ways to make me fail. And then there are snitches in groups that then feed their ways back to tell me what some of the people were doing to help make you fail. Then there are the lawsuits to try to get the courts to say that I'm not qualified to be a police chief. And if you did any small amount of homework, you would find that FBI agents become sheriffs, they become police chiefs. Cities go outside to get chiefs quite regularly. New York does it, LA does it, and cities do it. But this core group, it was extremely difficult to try to even get a group to acknowledge that you're really valid in your position. I told them a couple times I used the Don Pasquale method, and got really, really mad and intimidated people and told them I'd cut their effing heads off if they, went any farther with certain things. I mean, you can get to a level where you lose your, lose your cool and get absolutely horribly mad at people that are actually trying to make you fail. You're trying to run a police department for 200,000 people that rely on you, and if people are actually trying to make the police department fail, you can get extremely angry. But I promised them a couple things. I promised them without a doubt that I promised them I will never lie to you. I will not undermine you, and I will never lie to you. And if you work with me and are honest with me and try to help the Akron Police Department move forward, the next promotions to majors will come from within. But if you're against me and I find out that you're not working as a team with me, you will not be on that team. And I will run you out of the door. I mean, it wasn't always a friendly conversation. I have two majors, and both of those majors, Ken Ball and Paul Calvaruso, did a wonderful job of working and making the department better. But it just took coming to work every day and sitting there and making decisions that are good for the police department, not good for Jim Nice, good for the police department. And we hadn't had hiring in a lot of years, and I got the mayor to do some hiring, so we went from 390 up to 451. Some of the troops, they don't have the same issues that the captains have. So as much as some of the top managers want to believe the whole police department's got bad morale, it's them, and a person that gets in a police car and is on a shift doesn't have the same issues that some of the top executives that want to be the chief of police have.
What would you say you found since you've been chief about either the folks in your command or about the city that surprised you?
I don't know that anything within the command surprised me. You know, you've got the bell curve at times. I think I had the bell curve. I think that the majority were 85s or something like that. There are some real standouts. They're majors now. And there are some poor players, you know, in the bell curve. And I think you end up, but I expected that. Every supervisory assignment I've had in my life, whether it was the Navy or coaching, I mean, you cannot have the bell curve, but if you don't, you're lucky if you have all high achievers. So I don't know.
What were the major problems that you were facing, not with the department, but with the population, you know, in terms of the crimes that were being committed when you came in, and are those still prevalent today?
Can I back up to the last question for a second? Hey, I'll take that back. There's something that surprised me or was interesting to me that in the FBI wouldn't be heard of in a million years, and that is to go to work and have your right-hand folks, like you're the leader, and they're at the command staff table suing you and trying to make you, in an open lawsuit, trying to make you lose your job, and act like it's not personal. I mean, it's hysterical at times, and 6 of the 9 captains did that, and 3 said, I don't want any part of that. But it's that same union thinking that in the FBI, if some of the guys in the field office said, hey, let's sue the special agent in charge, I mean, you'd never surface again. You'd be in who knows, Alaska, digging mines, pretending there's some evidence hidden in the bottom. I don't know, but it floored me that you could come and sit right beside me and have lawsuits trying to say you're not qualified for a job, you can't get the job. And then the thinking, I know I'm usually outspoken, it's the Kenmore in me, I guess. The thinking that, okay, let's say you win, and the court says, well, Jim Nice can't be a police chief because he was from the FBI. Do they think that the mayor's going to, like, promote them to chief? He already told them, I'm not making any of you guys chief, and now they're suing the city, and they're digging a deeper hole in the popularity, so you start thinking, why would you even do this? If you get me ran out of here, what do you think he's going to bring in? I mean, pit bulls are coming in to just like chew your heads off, and so that surprised me, and they're still there, but the mentality is so low that you grow up in I hate unions, but you grow up in a union environment and you think, well, I can just sue the boss and I can do this and it doesn't matter and it's not personal and it's crazy. It's like not business. And I guess you do that in union type of environments.
So let's back to the question. What kinds of issues in terms of crime faced when you came in, and is that still prevalent today?
Great question. And I'll answer the second part. No, it's not. Well, it's prevalent today, but you have to wake up every day in policing and pay attention to today, because today is not even like 2011. Of course, over a decade or over 2 decades, you now have terminals and the computers, all these different things, facial recognition software. But when I came in, the community was acting similar to the 90s, and the community was saying, reduce crime, violent crime is too high, homicides are too high, get to Crime Stop. Can I ask a few questions? I always ask questions when I speak to a group, because even folks that are police officers in other places and judges that are in the system have a skewed view of what actually is going on out there. So, sort of right there in the blue striped shirt, is crime in 2011 higher or lower than the 90s?
It's higher than
It's higher than the 90s. Okay, is that true? You're a young guy. Guess. Okay, crime is significantly lower in 2011. I don't expect people to know that, but crime is significantly lower. In Akron, Ohio, meaning I wasn't living here, but Akron was having homicides in the 40s. How many homicides did we have, just a guess, ma'am, last year?
Akron?
Yeah. You live in Akron, you go to school in Akron?
I don't know.
100, okay. How many? We had 23 when I came on, 29, 27, 23. We're down 13% this year, and it's continuing, I think, as soon as I get my new chart at the end of the month. But we've only had, I think, 13 homicides this year. They used to be in the 40s. So I came in, and from the 90s, when crime was super high, going into the 2000s, the community was screaming to reduce crime. When they do that, we work for the public, people create tools and methodology to answer the questions of the community. I think that's what government does, right? Politicians, they say, lower taxes, raise taxes, do this, fix potholes. So they created systems like CompStat, which is computer statistics, where Chief Bratton, I was in LA when Chief Bratton came out to LA, and CompStat was a method of holding police accountable for what they do, like not accountable for their actions, but accountable for the statistics. How many people did you arrest? How many people did you put in jail to reduce crime? So CompStat was real big. Police sweeps were real big. I worked gangs and violent crime in Los Angeles. We'd do sweeps all the time. So we're out there in the gang neighborhoods, just ripping through, doing sweeps. And the public said, good for you, get these drug dealers and violent criminals off the streets. So I went to meeting after meeting where people would call meetings and say, we need to talk about the crime, we need to talk about the violent crime in the city. And I've only been here 4 years and 3 months. So continue with the question. That's what I came into in 2011.
Let me ask you a question. It's not really about Akron, but it's about what's going on in Cleveland right now. And in Cleveland, there seems to be an epidemic, like my word,
It's violent crime.
of killings up there, gang killings. And I know you spend a lot of time in the FBI and gang unit, or whether it's
I work
called.
gangs in LA, yeah.
And doesn't the police department in Cleveland know where all these gangs are located and where the gang members are? I mean, why, you know?
Not,
They don't know.
no, not really. I worked gangs in Cleveland for 2 years. You know some of the gang members, like in Los Angeles, when we work gangs, there are thousands and thousands of gangs. There's the formal gang, Hells Angels, Mexican Mafia, Bloods, Crips. They're formal gangs. But when people say gangs, they actually are talking about young people involved in criminal activity that hang together. So in cities like Akron, when I was undercover, it was a gang. They called them the KK Klan Outlaws, the KKOs. And actually, KKOs were a spinoff from Cleveland, which was the King Kennedy Outlaws from the projects up there. But they were KK Klan down here. We've got some gangs, but most of the crime in Cleveland and Akron are young people that are not actually attached to a gang. They just have behaviors similar to a gang. So if it's a young person that's slinging small amounts of dope, carrying a gun, having feuds with other people, they call it gang violence. But if I took the 13 people that have been murdered, they call it gang violence, but none of those 13, I can tell you for a fact, none of those 13 were in a gang, weren't in the KK Klan Outlaws or the V-Knots or the Hells Angels.
That's just the point, that they weren't a gang.
Not.
And they were individuals like babies being killed, right? And
Well, they've had that.
Well, they've had a lot of that recently. So my question is, what are they doing in Cleveland that they should be? From your experience in terms of, we call it gangs just for the moment. I appreciate your definition, but there's something going on up there. It's not going on here.
It is going on here, but go
It
ahead.
is going on here, okay. So how do you try to combat that, knowing this is a never-ending problem, and that maybe there's no solution except what seems to be happening, which is going after the people that did this and consoling the families and et cetera?
Well, it's like heroin, it's not a police solution. A lot of people would think homicides are a police solution. It can be a solution to resolve some of the homicides and solve them, but the homicides going on in this country are astronomical, like 500 in Chicago. Cleveland, I think, is in the 80s. We're actually lower, but it's a societal problem. The African American community has got troubles like nobody's business. If that offends somebody, I'm sorry. We talk about it openly in police circles, but what has happened in policing? We start off with the gun violence. Then, because of the cell phones and Apple and things like that, some police officers are getting captured in bad behavior. And some police officers are getting captured in behavior with African Americans. Now, the percentage of the calls to service that police do in a day to what gets captured and on CNN nonstop reel is such a low percentage. It's lower than the clergy. It's lower than any other profession. It's microscopic. It's less than 0.5%. But the reel keeps playing and keeps playing. The African American community as a whole is convinced that police are mistreating the African American community. So what's come from Tamir Rice and Michael Brown and North Charleston and Eric in New York, Eric Garner in New York, is the African American community is really ticked off. And I would be similarly ticked off if I thought, whatever I am, Kenmore guy, that police come in and they thug me and they treat me differently and it's okay to kick me in the ribs and shoot unarmed Kenmore people, rightfully so, angry as can be. The problem is misled as can be, completely misled. There are bad police officers. I got 451, I fired 5 people in the last year. So you're going to have, and that's not for thugging African Americans, but you're going to have people in every profession not doing well. If you count the millions of calls to service in a day, I have 650 to 800 calls to service each day in Akron, and we've got no video of somebody beating somebody up. And I'll tell you, when the police officers stop somebody, there's people across the street starting to film the whole thing, hoping they get that gold mine camera. So I'm doing 800 today, 800 tomorrow, 800 the next day. The profession has got some flaws here and there, like every other profession, and some people. Well, when you have, and I'm not an Obama fan, this is government, right? But you want to meet me, and it said in there my views, right? That's what it said in the letter. When you have the leader of the country, and this is a real bad point with police and police chiefs taking the side of Michael Brown on dope, committing a robbery, attacking a police officer, and sending people from the White House to visit him, and this officer lost his job, his life is ruined, he's being attacked by a criminal on drugs, and ends up having to shoot the guy to save his life, and you turn it into an African-American issue, and then the president turns it into an African-American issue. It wasn't. I mean, Officer Wilson didn't say, black guy, I'm going to shoot him, white guy, I'm not. You get attacked by a 270-pound man on dope that just on camera robbed a guy. The president has started the crime wave across this country because African Americans that are angry at police are empowered by the president, are empowered by the attorney general, are empowered by the mayor of Baltimore, the prosecutor in Baltimore, that we are indeed thugging the community. We are indeed beating the public up, particularly we're beating African Americans up. And there's tons of data out there. There's gobs of data out there, and
Let me ask you a
yeah.
question. I want to go back to something you said before you talked about what you just did. You talked about 600 to 800 calls a day.
Yes.
Okay. Why is it that the public is not aware of all the good? We only know of bad. I mean, for instance, and I'm sure your department is no different than any other department, that, I mean, I happen to know from personal experience, what a police officer goes through, each hour a police officer. I happen to know somebody whose daughter is a police officer who I live with, and she'll probably ask you a question sooner or later. But I know something about what they go through, but the public doesn't. So why isn't there, and then maybe there is, a PR aspect of what your police department does with getting information out? For instance, why not every day, because of the internet, there is something that's, and maybe it's there on your site, that says, here's what happened last night. Here's the kinds of things we did. We just saved this, we did that, and most of the stuff, is not, homicides and stuff like that.
Right.
But people don't even understand what police officers are called for. Some of the things they call for, they shouldn't be, right? But they answer the call. Why don't we know more about the positives?
Actually, a lot of people do. If you sit in my seat, we get emails on I get emails on a regular basis. I get letters on a regular basis telling me what terrific interaction people had with police officers. I was going to give a percentage, but for everybody that's anti-police and thinking bad, I can tell you 3 or 4 people are pro-police, pro-military, pro-police, don't believe that the police are the bad guys and things like that. Sometimes it depends what you watch. If you watch CNN, you get a different view of the same situation than if you watch Fox News. Is it in the middle? Is this one right sometimes? Is that one right? Media historically has always been liberal. Academia historically has always been liberal. So now the media reports everything. Do they want, I found in the Beacon Journal, and I work with them a lot, I found that they love to have some articles that, when Don Shishmanos had a problem in the Akron Police Department, there were more cover pages saying the same thing, that they like to report, like some bad things about the police. I was on WAKR today. They asked me to come over all the time about good things, about a grant we earned today for body-worn cameras from the Department of Justice. So they throw good things out there. We do press releases. They might end up in the newspaper, somewhere like this tomorrow. I'll bet you see something good, body-worn cameras about that big tomorrow. But if a police officer did something bad, we had a police officer that worked here at the University of Akron teaching some classes. That is, I guess, more highly read news is going to be picture on the front, full article, second page, again tomorrow. You can't control the media.
My point, just so I get off I know you get letters, and you know about the letters,
Yeah.
but I don't know about the letters. I mean, a lot of people don't know about the letters. I'm just saying that I agree with you that that police officers in this country, 99.9% terrific and do a great job and all that. And we have an expression that it leads. So they're looking for all the negative stuff. If you got so much positive stuff, that there ought to be something proactive that you do that's positive. I don't know what it is, but people ought to know all the things that these folks do, and they also ought to know a lot about them, because when you see somebody as a police officer, you told your story, right, about how you became.
Right.
Everybody got a story. They all
Right.
got stories here, and some of them are pretty interesting stories about how they wound up being a police officer. And I think that the more people understand that that these folks are doing a good job, and this is something they want to do. It's not something like oh, you're going to be a police officer. You didn't raise your hand.
Right.
Right. That's all.
We do some. I mean, we speak to all the community watch blocks. We speak to all the council meetings, and we do get that out there. We put out press releases. I started a park and walk program where the officers are out of the cars and talking to the public. Without a call to service, just talking to the public. We're doing more than 200 hours per week. I think the perception is, if you watch the media, that it's bad. I think if you go through Akron, I think that you'll find in the African American community, like every city, a lack of trust. They're not sure that they're being mistreated. They're being told they're being mistreated. So, they don't like that. I wouldn't either. And then you'll find, I think if you go into white communities, I think you'll find 6 out of 7 people would say positive things about the Akron Police Department.
Questions? Myron, first question of the semester.
I saw you taking notes, so now I'm worried.
Now, you answered part of my question during your talk. In the last year, there's been, a tremendous amount of rhetoric, anti-police, And the statistics also compared homicides in the last year. And they mentioned here 35 major cities, the increase in homicides.
Yes.
You probably know these numbers already, but for the benefit of the class.
I know about the riots and violent crime in this
Okay,
country.
Milwaukee, 76% increase
Yep.
in homicides. St. Louis, 60%.
Yep.
Baltimore, 56%. Minnesota, 47. Minneapolis, 47%. Houston, Washington D.C., which is not bad for Washington D.C., only 43%. And you were discussing some of the rhetoric from the media and that type of thing. So, and also on some of our administration and everything.
Sure.
Just your comment for this amount of increase in the past year. My feeling is it due to the rhetoric that we're hearing from our politicians and the media?
It's due to 2 things. It's my opinion, but I spend, all week working policing and visit with the major city chiefs and different issues. But one is police have backed off on policing as a requirement, not truly a requirement, but we are being told about constitutional policing and legitimate policing. I'm for both. Now, if you're going too far and you're violating the Constitution on stops, bad move, Fourth Amendment. So what has happened is, remember I was talking about the 80s and 90s, and Cleveland called it serve, people call it sweeps. We don't do those. And the reason is the African American community as a group, and I'm not criticizing the African American community, but this is what's going on. It truly is a black-white issue.
Okay, just for one statistic that you mentioned, African American. This is 2011. There were 6,739 black-on-black homicides. There was only 129 homicides due to police intervention.
Sure.
mean, the complete distortion, but the media will not
No,
publish it.
it's,
Now, there's one other statistic in support of what you were saying earlier. The trust in the police. The poll that I have, the number here is 70% people trust the police. And you were almost coming up there. Now, as far as the media, 65% of the people distrust the media. That's all I
Now, let me answer your question because I think this is important. Two things are going on. You're going to see a rise in crime. One is police are backing off. And we're not doing it like, then we're not going to go in there and police. But some of the techniques and tactics, ComStat, you're holding cops accountable for get as many guns off the street as you can. And I did a similar thing. I was tracking, collecting guns. How many guns we get off the street in Akron on car stops and search warrants last year? Guess. 500 guns in Akron. So we took those off the street. Now, if we back off on pulling somebody over, doesn't look right, doesn't smell right, and we start sniffing around a little bit, and we got 500 guns last year, and the chief doesn't want us violating the Constitution. I don't want violating the Constitution, but I don't want them pushing, don't want them irritating the community. Leave them alone. We will not take 500 guns off the street. We'll take 200 guns off the street. As the police back off, that's number one. Number two, it is mostly black crime, and it's mostly black folks that are being killed, but they're angry. And you tell the police to back off, and from the administration, from the president on down, you tell the African American community they are being cheated, and the police are a bunch of bad guys. Homicides on police officers are up. Police are open season. I had a police officer get assaulted, beat into the ground by an African American woman, and the woman, I went to the media, I got it on the front page, 112 arrests, beats a police officer significantly into the pavement, got probation. So the pendulum has swung so badly that it's okay in the black community to commit crime that we got to be triple sensitive, back completely off, watch our car stops, but there's a price. It is the pendulum, and the price is crime will continue to go up if policing is backed off. But I believe in all the things that DOJ is talking about. You have to be constitutional. You have to be legitimate. What you do has to be for a good reason. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe in ripping through, stopping anybody, getting in anybody's trunk. But when the sweeps and all those things have backed off, crime has gone up. Sorry.
Don't you think that body cameras solve a lot of that problem with
Won't solve any crime.
well, I know it won't solve crime, but I mean as far as the perceptions that
Yes.
you're talking about. And is that a plan in the future for Akron?
We got $376,000 today. We're only one of two cities in the whole state. We're only one of 12 middle-sized cities that got the grants from the administration. We've been working with Kent State University on a study with body cameras. It made us very competitive. We actually have a terrific relationship in Akron with the black community. We do. Way ahead of many communities. I say that, it's true.
I live on Maple Street, man.
But if you talk to everybody, there's still a mistrust in many people, but we're way ahead of the game in body cameras, transparency, listening to the community, all the things that matter. I go to any and every meeting, any night, any morning, any weekend, and we've got great relationships. All the leaders in the African American community are responsible people in Akron. Judy Hill with the NAACP, Mr. Wright with the Urban League, all the leaders are very responsible in Akron, and they don't call for nonsense. Did we shoot anybody African American in Akron last year, police department? Probably not, or we'd hear about it, right? We shot 4 people last year, all African American. 1 died. We killed 1 African American last year. And it's because we have the most responsible black community you could ever ask for, that's fair, that listens, that calls me on the phone. I know all the leaders, what happened there, and there's transparency from the police department. And you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that we had 4 police shootings. Last night we had a police shooting on a search warrant, on a SWAT search warrant. But it's not that anything's covered up. It's just like, if it's bad, like the guy that used to work here, it's going to be on the front page, and we're going to be transparent. Yeah, he goofed up. I'm sorry.
With respect to the media, and now we hear a lot more about police assaulting people. What is being done? I know the police officers are trained about safety when they are going into an already existing environment that's dangerous. But is there anything being done to train these officers more about how to prevent ambushes? And because they have become the target.
Somewhat, and that's true. They've become more of a target. We have limited amount of training. You'd be horrified if you saw the limited amount of police training that you can actually give. Beauticians get more training, like 5 times more training than police officers. So we have annual training. We work on all those type of topics and issues. One of the things that's coming out of the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, the Governor's Task Force, the Attorney General's Task Force, and all the consent decrees in the country is de-escalation. So at the same time you want your officer to be safe, there's a large push. Nobody wants to shoot unarmed guys, trust me. Nobody wants to get involved in that. But there's a monstrous push to like back away, de-escalate, and I agree with de-escalation. It's a great idea. But some people are saying, if you de-escalate too much, are you waiting to get shot before you defend yourself? And so it's a real touchy situation out there for police.
May I interrupt?
Yep.
I think that the point she was trying to make is her daughter is a police officer.
Right.
Okay? And when a police officer is pumping gas at a gas station in uniform and somebody comes by and kills him.
Right.
So the question is, with these kinds of things going on, is there any training for, our police officers that, if you're off work, don't pump, take off your shirt, and don't pump your gas or anything like that?
We don't actually train doing that, but they do it anyway. They call it a beer shirt. It's a term before, but a lot of officers, as soon as they get off work and they're going to drive their personal car home, they're in uniform, they'll throw on like a flannel shirt over top of their uniform so that when they stop at lights and things like that, they don't want to have their patches showing and things like that. So they I don't know where beer shirt came from. Maybe driving down the road drinking a beer, but there's not particular training, but the awareness. We do alerts and things like that, the awareness.
I'm curious what your take on social media is, because my local police department was, I think, one of the first police departments to start their own Facebook page, and one of the captains in charge would post, and some other communities have done that. Brookfield Township had an extraordinarily popular one.
Sure.
They had their own separate issues, as I'm sure you
Yeah,
know.
I do.
How do you feel about the use of police officers using social media to try to kind of control the conversation to some degree?
Let me ask you a question. Do we have social media in APD?
If you do, it's not very prevalent.
It is very prevalent. If you look at the number of hits, APD has Twitter, it's got Facebook, it's got all those things. There's a lot of conversation on our social media. We push information out. The number of hits is astronomical. We'll put out a photo of a bank robber and we can get hundreds of hits in 30 minutes. A lot of people visit our webpage. I agree with it. I like it. You push the message out. We're heavily involved.
Do you guys post mugshots or because in my community they do that, and that's where they catch a lot
We
of
push all kinds of things out. If you call a mug shot, yeah, if we were looking for a fugitive and we had their photo, yes. If there's a picture of a guy in a robbery that the camera gets, yes. And we push all that out, and we use social media. I'm an old guy that the younger people all know that I don't even have an account. I mean, but yes, I agree with it, and it's what people are using now to get information.
I actually worked at my police department. I was an intern when I was in college, and I had access to the Facebook page. And although I saw that there were overwhelmingly lots of people that were positive and to share and with the posting, there were so many people that wanted to be the negative person. So they had to spend a lot of time off duty or whatever, deleting comments and banning people and blocking people. And it got to the point where they stopped posting things because it wasn't even worth it because so many people abused it. Do you guys have that problem?
We have the negatives like everybody. We're a large organization, 600 employees total. We've got all the negatives with social media and the positives. You have to really police your employees with social media. They could be talking about a case which could really be damaging. So if they're at a shooting last night and they tell their friend and their friend tells a friend, or they tweet something that's inappropriate. So we've got the positive and the negative from social media.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
You were talking about technologies such as the body cameras. Have you looked into other technologies like the shot spotter?
Yes.
Or things like that? And
Have.
are they going to be implemented in the city?
If you would go to the International Chiefs of Police Conference, it's one of the conferences, the technical show, the vendor show, would be from about here to the Polsky Building Square. And there are literally thousands of vendors that have technology to offer police departments. It's overwhelming. Shot spotter is a big one. It's so much money for 1 square mile, you can't even buy it. If you're Hudson and you have a lot of money, maybe you can buy some of this technology. I have a captain that's a lot smarter than me with technology, and I have a group that is a technology group, and we look at data aggregators. There's new information in data aggregation. You solve crimes now on the internet. You stay in the office. Hey, it's a lot safer here, and you get on data aggregators, and you can follow fugitives around the country and do a million things. But yes, technology costs money, and if you could spend any amount of money, you could do some tremendous things like the bad guys, but you get limited by a budget. And we do as much as we can with new technology.
Chief, it seems since 9/11, and maybe even from before that, technology is also accompanied with some are concerned to be a militarization or paramilitarization of police departments. I work in Cuyahoga Falls from time to time and watch the guys head out loading assault rifles and bags of deer and all of this, and it's a lot different than Adam 12 when I was growing up. And I'd like your thoughts on that.
I'll give you my thoughts. I went against the department, but when you're the boss, you get away with like winning those battles. The young people want to dress like Desert Storm, many of them, and they want to look really tough, and I didn't like it. I'm an older guy, and I like the uniform, and the public doesn't necessarily like it. Then you get into a couple years later, it definitely was the right decision by me. They wanted to go to what's called an outer vest. So now a regular police officer going to your house because you got a complaint, somebody parked something in your driveway. They show up with a Desert Storm and hand grenades hanging off the side and a long gun slung over their shoulder and a knife. It doesn't look good. And it looks like the cops are those types of people, the thugs or the tough guys. And I didn't like it. I said no, big battles with the officers that all want to go to the outer vest, and they all want to look like tough guys. I said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to look like we used to. We're going to put the vest under a shirt. We're going to look professional, and you do wear a gun. That's more a mentality, trying to look tough, having the tough vehicles, the tough gear. You'll find people that would like to get their shotgun or their M4 out of the trunk on a search warrant to take a computer, and you're thinking, what are you doing? And what you have to do is you have to supervise and manage 25-year-olds and 28-year-olds, and you have to make decisions that are good for the public. I've never been a fan, just like the community has said, we don't like the militarization. People are going out there, they want tanks from the military. They want all these different things. I've said no, 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 and no all along. It hasn't been popular. It's been popular with the public. We look professional. But some of the young people just really want to look like an Army Ranger. Hi.
My father was a big police employee for over 40 years. And we were talking about the spike in violence in Cleveland. He had said that he believes it's because we have a force of guardians instead of warriors. And the reason he said that is because officers are afraid to really get involved. As a leader, what are you doing to show the men and women who work for you, as well as the city, that you have their back?
I think that there's more to, if you listen to a patrolman, maybe, that you've got to have their back. I think there's a mix when you become the boss of an organization that the citizens of Akron, the mayor of Akron, didn't hire me to take care of cops. They hired me to use cops to take care of the population and the public. So one thing I'm critical of is people that are too interested in having everybody's back. And so then what you find, and this is true in policing many times, not all time, is now he's investigating, he's a sergeant, the use of force by the patrolman, but he's got his back. Now isn't that like maybe corruption or the wrong thing? And he really should be written up for too much force, but he's got his back. So I have their back on issues where they're right. I was in the front page of paper for attacking a judge, not real popular, because I work with the judges, for openly attacking a judge, for sentencing somebody to probation for beating a police officer up. That's very popular with the cops in having their back, the hiring, the promotions, and things like that. But then I have officers that do things that aren't so good, that the union has their back while they're stalking students at Akron U. They're still sticking up for them. I don't have the back of people that are doing the wrong thing. They're employees that get paid, and it may sound cruel, but they're employees that get paid. You make sure they get treated fairly and things like that. But it's not my job just to have the back of police officers. That's why everybody calls for independent reviews, independent investigations, because cops have had historically too much of a concern for each other's back, which means you're not getting the truth.
Joe, you got a question?
Do you have any thoughts about issue 3?
I do. That's an easy one. I don't think it's a good idea. I'm not a fan. I've been in meetings with the Denver chief, with the Boulder chief, a lot of issues. They're not happy at all. If I had my way, this is Jim Nice, you guys invited me here, I think alcohol should be illegal, tobacco should be illegal, gambling should be illegal. I've sat for 30 years watching families get ruined by alcoholics, and I've got no, I absolutely am against marijuana being legalized. Now, what I will say though is, what should happen with people that use and things like that? I don't think that we should spend, that's one of the issues, all the police resources. It's not the biggest issue. It's not equal to violent crime. It's not equal to heroin trafficking and things like that. So whether they cite somebody and let them walk right now, it's gotten to the point where misdemeanors and people get a citation and don't even get arrested. That's not a big deal to me, but I wouldn't vote to make it legal myself.
I'm kind of curious, you talk in a lot of generalities. There's a lot of sort of us versus them, whether it's the Obama administration or, for example, in the media. And I'm just kind of curious, I wonder if Garen Wilson is as much a victim of mismanagement of the Ferguson police force as he is the media and the president's statements. But I also wonder, you were brought in by the city of Akron, and they clearly had an issue with the current, police administration that was involved with leading leadership in 2011. I wonder, as you speak in these generalities and as you sort of pose an us versus them. What are you doing? What is the police department doing to earn the trust of minority communities in Akron? What is the police department doing to earn the trust of everybody in the city of Akron? I guess that's my question.
Okay, and there's a lot. There's actually a very good question. I'm going to answer the first part of your question. There's two things going on in Ferguson. The one thing is the incident isolated in and of itself. So you could look at, here's an officer, here's the incident, and you could look at that. They did that. Then the Department of Justice comes in and looks at the Ferguson Police Department patterns and practices, is what they call it when DOJ comes in, and they're guilty of that. So if you look at, is Darren Wilson guilty of something bad? Maybe not, in my opinion. You look at the whole thing, but is the Ferguson Police Department guilty of, the community's 75% African American, the police department is almost all white, and then you look at patterns and practice, like in Cleveland, and they find patterns and practices. Before they can go under consent decree, there are documents that show all the mistakes. So they're probably guilty of all those things outside that one incident. What is Akron doing to build the community? Before Ferguson, before all these issues, I started a faith-based meeting with members of the community. It ends up being predominantly African Americans, Bishop Johnson, Carl Wallace, but then white folks show up, Muslim community leaders, church leaders show up. We meet quarterly. The books are open. What do you want to know about? I have meetings with then the other community leaders with the open books, Urban League, NAACP, all the groups. They set up their own meetings that you go to at churches to talk about the police beating everybody, whatever it is they talk about. I'll stand in front of the community and I'll listen to them. We meet with every single meeting in the African American communities, white communities as well, all the communities, with You and the Law, a program that Billy Soul from the mayor's office, Willa Keith, a retired police officer, sergeant, that we rolled out in the city, where you meet with all these people interacting with the police. Coffee with the chief, we roll it out. We talk to the community and let them ask the questions you ask. I'm not doing everything right. I just got empowered with the job, and until I retire, they're going to throw mud at you. They're going to throw tomatoes at you. They're going to slap you on the back and tell you you're doing a great job. You get it all. But if you hide behind your door and slide directives out from under the door, you're not meeting. I've been more visible in 4 years and demanded from all the commanders to be out there with the communities. So you're spending mornings, evenings, weekends. You're in auditoriums with churches on Saturday mornings, the urban leagues, but you have to talk to 1 million people. You can't blow smoke up. You can't lie to people. If they want your opinions and you run in the police department, you better give them your opinions, because if they're different, it gives them an opportunity to say, that's not right, that's not fair, and then tell me it's not fair, and let's talk about it. We do that with all the leaders in the community. I traveled to Washington with Bishop Johnson, and we met with 200 police chiefs, and they brought folks in the Department of Justice. So it's the interacting with the community. I wouldn't think there's an African American leader that doesn't know me fairly well, that gets all my opinions and can walk in my office. Actually, anybody can walk in my office. You'd be surprised at, but you give that level of transparency, you give that level of honesty, you never lie to the community, you don't back down when there's an issue that you think, no, the police are right here. We had use of force on North Hill, big battle. Some of the groups said, we thugged this guy. It wasn't true. And but there are thousands of hours to go into the relationship building. If people know you and you've been honest and fair with them, it's harder for them to lead a charge against you. Like I say, and it could happen tomorrow, tonight, where something goes bad and we get it. But I can guarantee you one thing. If something bad happens in the African American community they're not happy about, I will bet you $1,000 I get the first calls from the Urban League, from the NAACP, from the leaders in the community, from the churches, because we work together all the time. And that's important. And you'll find out some chiefs just don't want to deal with the negative. You go to these churches and you spend 2 hours in front of an angry crowd. It's not fun. I mean, you'd rather sleep in or go to breakfast or something like that. But it pays dividends so that you can go on out there and you can tell them, here's the way I see it, or if they have answers. But I've got the perfect situation. They're going to call me and they're going to ask me if they have a problem.
Other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
You had mentioned that you would increase the police force by a significant percentage
Yes.
in the last year or so.
4 years.
One of my good friends in Canton, her son is actually one of the cadets that was part of that expansion. I had heard or read that it was because you had to put 2 officers in the vehicle, so you had 2 people going out at a time. If crime has gone down significantly, was that, what I was reading and hearing and what she had told me is because it was a safety issue. Is that because crime has increased because you've gotten the addition of the officers, or is it you did it just for safety?
But you got a little bit of a misreading, but
You understand what I'm saying?
yeah, I do. I know exactly what you're saying.
Do you need more officers still?
We did not increase officers to go to 2-man cars. We have in Akron historically, before I got here, we have 2-man cars in the evening, 1-man cars during the day. We had an officer attacked, we've had a few officers attacked, and for a short period of time, I went to 2-man cars during the day, but that was not at all related to the hiring. The hiring was because we were low on folks. We got some great grant money. We wrote to the Department of Justice. We got a 10-officer grant, and the next year followed by a 12-officer grant that the Department of Justice pays the first couple years of salary, and then we take over. But you have to say that 10 officers, and then the next year 12 officers will do the flavor of the day. The first year it had to do with community policing. I developed a neighborhood response team embedded into patrol. Don't go to calls of service, just do community policing. So if you take their money, you got to do what they ask you to do. The next one was gun violence, actually, in reverse order. And we got bodies for gun violence reduction. Before everybody started dying from heroin, it was all about gun violence reduction. And I have a gun violence reduction team, which is 10 officers. So the growth has been a combination of Mayor Pasquale allowing me to get some hiring going and some good grants that our grant writers have achieved.
Chief, I guess you indicated that you were one of the very first with the FBI, but I think the trailblazer, as far as the chief of police, I think the trailblazer in Akron came a little before you with Drew Alexander
Thornton.
bringing in Keith Thornton.
Yep, I know Keith really well.
And that worked out exceptionally well. But the question I'd like to ask you is about this heroin issue that we keep on hearing about in the streets and at some of our functions. They're talking about giving people or having the antidote and
Yep.
so forth. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
One day, I come in and I'm working and I identify my issues and problems. It's gun violence, and you work on all these things. And I have a morning staff meeting. Every morning, the commanders sit in there and they report into me what happened in the last 24 hours. And I hear that somebody died from a heroin overdose. Okay, we have people that commit suicide. I mean, it's a city, you have things. Then another one, and then there's like 2 in a week, and then there's 3, and all of a sudden I'm like, what's going on? It just strikes me, what's going on? And it was the beginning, and I heard it from just the gradual increase in Akron. Before anybody had said, hey, there's a heroin problem, I started noticing, because every day I hear about what happened in Akron. And now people are dying. We started getting interested in it. I developed a team, heroin overdose response team, that were holding people accountable for dealing heroin where people die. We had a plea yesterday. They were going to go to trial. We've done like 15 cases on dealers. It's gone astronomical. When you go to some of the chiefs' meetings in Washington and things, many cities. The Northeast is hit really bad, Vermont, some of those areas. Akron's hit horribly. We're at, right now in Akron, about 60 overdose deaths this year, since January 1. That's 60 people that don't have cancer, don't have other diseases, not old age, some 20s, some in their 50s, that would normally be just going to work and being somebody's father, friend, dead. And it's not slowing down. Nationally, we've looked at it. It's not a police problem. We have a lane, but it's actually a national health epidemic. More people die from heroin overdoses in Akron and Summit County now than auto accidents, than gun violence. It's double gun violence. In 2011, a couple years ago, we'd have like one person from a drug overdose and 27 gun violence. Now it's double gun violence already. Prescription medications are prescribed at 10 times the level. Opiate prescriptions are 10 times the level prescribed in Ohio than 10 years ago. And I'm stealing this comment, but it's from the U.S. Attorney, Steve Dettelbeck. He said, I doubt if pain is 10 times higher. So what's happened is there's big money in some of the dealing. So opiates are going off the counter like nobody's business. The country's paying more attention to that, to doctors and who's prescribing. The Mexicans, and I mean the Mexican drug cartels from Mexico, heroin used to come in from Southeast Asia, from Afghanistan. When I was 16, 18, 20 years old, there were heroin addicts. They were getting 17%, 15% heroin. Now it's being produced. They shut down the cocaine. Cocaine's going away. They shut down cocaine in Mexico, and the Mexicans are growing poppy in Mexico. I met with Michelle Lenhart, the director of the DEA in Washington. We talked about these issues, showing me what's going on with their analysts and things. But now the Mexicans are bringing it in. They're bringing it in through Chicago, through Atlanta, through many of the channels, and they're using the traditional cocaine, crack cocaine dealers, the same network of dealers used to 3 years ago deal crack cocaine, are dealing heroin. The profits are astronomical. They've walked away. Like I say, they've walked away from cocaine, and they're trying to get fixes for $5 and $8. The opiates own people so quickly that if you start taking Percocet or you start taking some opiate, it's real likable to the body. And now trying to buy prescription medications illegally, some people are having to pay as much as $80 for a pill, trying to find these pills, and they want the opiates. Now, regular people would never in a million years think about a needle in their arm. College students, one of my friend's son died. He was a senior at Akron U, criminal justice major, good kid. Started taking pills with the guys. And I'll steal this statement, I forget who said it, but nobody starts with intravenous heroin use. So it's really a troubling situation going on where the Mexican cartels are making it so cheap and so easy, and they're pushing it so hard on us. And we work the cartels here in Akron. We have some tremendous takedowns on the dealers, but it's reaching the white population, the black population, the Hispanic population, males, females, 18 years old, 57, 59 years old. The only way to break this, again, it's not going to be a law enforcement fix because it just won't work, is educational campaigns and getting people to stop starting on opiates, pills. And if that's holding doctors more accountable, if it's parenting better, if it's the DARE program in the schools. But right now, it's a monstrous problem. We work on it. We're part of the opiate task force in the county, which is a multidisciplinary approach. Treatment doesn't work very well. That's what the treatment people tell me. I talk to heroin addicts. Heroin addicts tell me that. Once you're addicted to heroin, most of the addicts say, forget about it. And I can't. It would take a super brave person to actually beat heroin addiction and stay off, and some do it, but the percentage is low. You just got to get people to not start.
So recently, motorcycle enthusiasts in Western Akron have changed their affiliations to the Hells Angels.
Yep.
Is that something we as citizens of Greater Akron should be aware of, concerned about? Is this an issue, or are these just a bunch of knuckleheads watching a bunch of TV?
Hells Angels have been in Akron before. They took over the clubhouse right up on North Howard Street. I know the exact house. I tried to get a meeting with the president, but I guess he doesn't want to meet with me. Just say hi, I know you're here. The crime that motorcycle gangs commit generally wouldn't affect the population of Akron, generally, except you know what happened in Waco, where there's a massive shootout. Now, it does concern me a little bit because Canton's got some motorcycle gangs in South County, Stark County, that rival some of the gangs that are now in Summit County. There's already been talk about taking over territories. So could two gangs be at a motorcycle swap meet at the fairgrounds? Could they be at a Denny's? Yes. And it is concerning, but right now, if we don't know of any crimes they're involved in, we have an intelligence unit. We collect intelligence on gangs. Of course, the Hells Angels are known to be an outlaw motorcycle gang. So I think common sense would say we collect intel as much as we can on their activities. We get tips from people. First choice is not to have Hells Angels in your city.
That's, Myers, you have a question?
Yeah, I just, what are the main routes of heroin entering the United States?
The border, like Tucson and San Diego. If you want to watch
Overland, across the border?
underland, overland, drones are now going to be a big problem. Drones can carry things. So now you're going to have drones that there's nobody to arrest. Somebody throws a drone up in Mexico and then drops bales. If you haven't watched a TV show called Drugs Inc., INC, Drugs Inc. on National Discovery, or is that the right term? Discovery Channel? No, National Geographic. Drugs Inc. on National Geographic. It's scared the daylights out of you. They're building tunnels because there's so much money involved. They build tunnels for miles under the border. And the tunnels come right up into buildings, not out in the open. So you buy a building somewhere in Tucson or some border city, and they've got rails down there. So they lay tons of dope on the rails, and they pull them through for a mile, and they're coming right up into buildings. And the DEA and the Border Patrol, they shut them down. But by the time they shut them down, they're using mules, not important people, to send it and receive it and get it out. So yeah, they get people caught. They get these tunnels caught, and they just build a new one. They can spend $1 million building a tunnel, but they'll make $5 million in a week. There's almost no slowing down people. And now with drones, they were using submarines to get it into the country because they have unmanned, like remote control. So you load an unmanned submarine up, you send it around, you have it come into Long Beach somewhere. It's a hard war to win, the big war on cartels. Make small dents, but there are plenty of people willing to make millions of dollars.
George, you have the last question.
Chief, when you were talking about those motorcycle gangs, I can remember back, probably back in your days when they had the Misfits and the Zulus in Akron.
Misfits were Kenmore.
That's right.
And some of my high school classmates were Misfits. And I did know the Misfits. And the Hells Angels chapter was actually
That's right.
Kenmore. It was at Ira Avenue and Edison.
Sedona was there.
So,
Got blown up.
and before that, they were out there by Primo's Deli. What's that road that runs out there?
Romig Road.
Well, Romig, but the one that shoots off to Norton. Yeah, they were at the corner of Collier and whatever the road going to Norton is, Akron Wadsworth Road.
Let's thank the chief.
Thank you.
for